Welcome, everybody, in the Off the Ball Network fandom and beyond to yet another episode this week of the Bunts and Bruises Podcast. Coming at you guys with our 10th episode ever. Man, time has flown. We're in the double digits, guys, and we're very happy to make it this far. Obviously, we kind of said it partially jokingly throughout all the episodes so far. We're in the top whatever percent, but in all seriousness, podcasting is fun, but it's also a task that you need to take on. You need to be serious with, and thankfully, you guys have joined us through the very beginning stages of this journey so far, and we're very excited to continue it here with episode number 10. As always, coming at you on this week's episode, one of your hosts, Jurg and Coney here. Always love talking with you guys, talking to you guys, talking about hockey, baseball, and everything else. And of course, as always, with me on my show, my partner in crime, the number one pitcher in the starting rotation, the number 3-4 hitter in the lineup, James Barcia.
Well, Jurg, I can't do it without you, man. You're looking like Carey Price out there. You just hold it down for me. You're the foundation. You're the number one. But I like to apologize to all our fans because it is Tuesday. I know it's different. We made you guys wait a day. I had to build suspense, though. And I wanted to see my Brooklyn Nets just give a whooping out there. Honestly, I was wishing the game was a little closer, but it didn't work out. But either way, I had a good time. And I'm just ready to get straight to it. We ain't even going to talk about that game because that game was just such a beatdown. We're going to skip basketball, but we're going to jump straight into the craziest news of the week. It actually has nothing to do with baseball or hockey, Jurg. Tell the people what I'm talking about.
Yes, so other sports actually exist, believe it or not, guys. We know that other sports exist. We just, Bunts and Bruises is the name. We're going to talk to you guys about baseball and hockey, but we know that other sports exist. So for you guys here, of course, and we've covered football in the past. No one can say we haven't. So coming back to you guys with more sports news, the biggest sports news of the week by far, Julio Jones, one of the top wide receivers in the game. You could number one receiver argument always changes every single year. Last year was Devonta Adams and Stephon Diggs. Like the year or two before that was DeAndre Hopkins. And another year or two before that was Julio Jones. So Julio Jones has officially been traded, one of the marquee big names that was not necessarily unhappy. You never say he was unhappy deliberately, but the writing was on the wall for a while that he was eventually going to get moved. And he did get traded finally by the Atlanta Falcons to, of all teams, the Tennessee Titans. So that was definitely something that shocked a lot of people, myself included. James, if I remember correctly, the package was a second and a fourth, if I'm not mistaken, or a second and a fifth. It was one of those two trade packages.
I want to say it was a second and a fifth, and the Titans got back a sixth in Julio or something like that. Yeah,
it was one of those trades where it's like late round picks are thrown in there just for the heck of it. But the real prize, of course, is Julio Jones. Ultimately, can't even say anything about it from Atlanta side. So James, I'm going to throw it over to you first. How shocked were you that ultimately the Tennessee Titans were the suitor that won the Julio Jones sweepstakes?
Honestly, it was shocking. But if you were really listening to, the Twitter sphere and the grapevine or wherever you want to get your rumors from, it was something in the works, especially after Shannon Sharp made that phone call on live TV and he said, I'm out of there. And he said, I want to go to the Titans. I want to go to he didn't say Cowboys. I forgot what the second team was, but clearly it doesn't matter because it was the Titans. Julio, it came straight from his mouth that he was considering the Titans. People thought it might have been just smoke or something because, what's in Tennessee? I'm sorry. If we have fans in Tennessee besides Nashville, I don't know much about you guys. I just know you have the most dominant running back in the league. So other than Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Ryan Tannehill, I guess Julio had to be the culture or something because everyone knows Mike Vrabel, he's a good coach. He might not be the greatest schematically, but the moment he came to Tennessee, that whole culture changed. They stopped becoming a laughing stock and they became a serious playoff contender. And now with this Julio trade, they might possibly be a championship contender. They still got a couple things they got to figure out on the defensive side, but everyone knows in today's league, it is strictly an offensive game. And when you have a bad defense, the best cure for a bad defense is having a great running back. So they just so happen to have the greatest running back in the league. So honestly, I love the move. I think they got him relatively, I don't want to say cheap, depending how deep they go, though. If that's a late second, that's more of a third and a fifth you just traded. So Honestly, I love the deal for the Titans. I think they're going to re-sign him, and could possibly be whatever you saw from Atlanta. We could forget about that the last 2 years of Julio, because yes, he's been injured, but that whole Atlanta offense has been shaky. Calvin Ridley's really been the only good thing coming out of that, and that's because everyone knew and expected that coming from him. So I expect good things from this trade. If the defense could be just average to slightly below average at best, you're looking at an AFC champion contender over here.
Yeah, and I think the number one thing that you mentioned when it came to that is the defensive side of things. That ultimately, with this Tennessee Titan team, a lot of people were questioning what the defense was going to look like, and it is eventually going to perform this upcoming season. And I think the Titans, to your point, James, they kind of looked at the landscape and they essentially just said to themselves, like, okay, our defense isn't that strong. What could we do? Oh, let's just build up offensive weapons the best we can. Like you said, we already have the best running back in the game, at least the most powerful running back in the game by far. You have one of the bright, young, up-and-coming receivers in A.J. Brown, who's been phenomenal to start his career so far. Ryan Tannehill, I have my mixed opinions on him, but he's not a bad quarterback in any stretch of the imaginations. And every once in a while, he's going to give you that game that makes him look like a top 8, top 10 quarterback. Now, do I necessarily always agree with that on an every week basis? No, but again, it's game by game. And if he could get you that game here and there, especially when it matters, that's sometimes all you need out of your quarterback. I think Julio Jones, at least for myself personally, really tips the scales. I'm not going to lie to you, James. Before this trade happened, I was going to have the Tennessee Titans miss the playoffs this upcoming season because I just did not like how much this team lost defensively. Just offense, it felt like they were going to become stagnant because they lost Jonnu Smith, which is a big deal. Ryan Tannehill, yeah, he's been great in Tennessee so far, but every Cinderella run comes to an end. And at some point, teams will figure out, how to get to him, how to bother him, how to make him look more like the Ryan Tannehill we saw in Miami, right? But Julio Jones negates so many of those factors. And I know a lot of people are already making jokes. Well, I hope Julio Jones is going to get used to run blocking for Derrick Henry. Let me just say something right now. When you bring in a wide receiver of the caliber of Julio Jones, you're going to start calling a couple more passes every single game. Look, we all love Derrick Henry, King Henry and all that, and his smash mouth style of play makes a lot of people think about how the running game used to be and how football used to be in general. And I can understand that. But if you do not call a few more plays here and there for Julio Jones, then that's a failure on the organization. Straight up. Like you get this guy you didn't have to trade a lot for, which is, I think, the next big thing. How did no one think of giving up a first-round pick for a guy like a Julio Jones? Like, you could say whatever you want about recent injuries, aging receiver, and all that. That's one of the top 5, 4, whatever receiver in football right there. Now, I'm not saying a team like the Jets should give up a first by any stretch of the imagination.
The Ravens should have gave up a first. I'm surprised they didn't give up the first and they took Bateman with that instead. I would have been done that.
Honestly, like, you could have given up Bateman in the deal and then like a future second. It's like, hey, here's a prospect and a second round pick, which honestly is a lot more valuable than just a random 5th rounder. So yeah, I just really don't understand. I'm not even going to harp too much on Baltimore, but just how did someone not take it a step further when it came to getting Julio Jones? I just don't really understand that. I know there's like a whole, for whatever reason, people hate the quote unquote diva wide receiver or whatever, but Julio's not even a diva. Like, he did not force his way out of Atlanta, the likes of other people. He just simply straight up said, like, okay, it's just not working in the organization anymore. We're no longer the team, that we once were, and I don't want to be a part of rebuild. He has every right to do that. He's the greatest wide receiver in Falcons history. You could look, all due respect to Roddy White, I know he was a baller, but Julio Jones is literally like, Julio Jones is one of the human beings in this world where I look at him and I'm just like, there's no chance I'm the same species as that man. 0% chance that could somehow make any sense. So I just don't understand how Tennessee didn't have to give up a first. I know the thing with NFL trades, and this is one thing I think, James, as we've gone more into the media side of things, we learn about this stuff. Like, NFL teams don't tell like the teams they're talking with, okay, so-and-so is actually offering this. What do you want to counter with? They keep everything in the dark for the most part, trying to see if they could get teams to overpay. And I'm sure it's not just the NFL. It's other sports most likely as well. But I'm just saying, like, this is actually a common practice. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee thought to themselves, like, okay, let's just give up the 2nd and 5th and see what happens. And the fact that they got it, like, again, all the credit in the world to Tennessee. You get an extra weapon there. They deserve the props for that they pulled off the deal. But I'm just disappointed that a lot of other teams didn't make that kind of, especially even in the AFC South in and of itself, like the Indianapolis Colts. Julio would have been the perfect weapon to give to Carson Wentz for him in year 1 in Indy. Just would have been perfect. So I don't get it ultimately, but hey, Tennessee, you got yourself a playmaker, like pure playmaker in Julio Jones.
Here's the one thing, though. Now that we can confirm what the trade was a 2022 second round and a fourth round 2023 for Julio in the sixth round in 2023. The crazy thing about this trade is it's gonna open. You said hopefully teams can find a way to make Ryan Tannehill look like the Ryan Tannehill of Miami. I don't think we ever see that guy anymore because I have actually been a Ryan Tannehill fan. I believe Ryan Tannehill is going to be great. And honestly, with Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, and A.J. Brown, the RPOs they could run, this was a perfect move for Tennessee because the fact that it only cost a second and a fourth, and they're not even in the same year, you dramatically underpaid for this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Even if he isn't 100% the Julio pass and he's only like 90% Julio, it's just this is going to take their offense to a new level because, like you said, they lost to Jonnu Smith, and someone you didn't mention, they lost Corey Davis, who signed with the Jets. He was like a 1,000-yard receiver very quietly. It was like 980, I believe. He's quietest 1,000-yard receiver out there. So to replace that guy and you upgrade with Corey Davis, I just don't see a way you lose this trade.
Right. You don't. You get the best player in the deal, and you didn't have to give up anywhere near equal value back, honestly. And to be fair on the Ryan Tannehill thing, unless I misworded it, I meant that before this trade, like they were going to figure out how to make him look like the old Ryan Tannehill. Now after this trade, it's going to be a lot harder because, again, Julio Jones is – I think a lot of people, like – I don't understand with the evolution of how sports is going. I still understand why people just think to themselves like the quarterback always makes the team, and even in situations like this, like I'm sorry, Ryan Tannehill don't make that team. He's like he's the fourth name you think of offensively, and maybe even fifth if you want to consider Taylor Lewan, their left tackle. So that's the way I see it personally. I'll admit I'm not a big Ryan Tannehill fan, but I'm also not blind to the fact like, hey, he's going to look a lot better now that Julio Jones is going to be one of his targets, and as a result, he's not going to look as bad as probably it would have been because. Man, Tennessee was not looking good before this trade. And I know a lot of people are probably going to think, like, how can a wide receiver make this much of a difference? You're blind to Julio Jones' talent if you don't think he's going to make that much of a difference. You're just blind to it. So, hey, I can't help the people that don't want to learn. You know, that's just how it goes sometimes. There's just one thing that we all need to learn, and myself especially. We're going to have to reconsider some of our NFL picks for next season because, man, Tennessee just threw a wrench into the system with this one. But, hey, that's what you got to do sometimes, right, James? You got to go big or go home.
I mean, Jurg, you know me. I'm all in every time. It's either you got to risk it for the biscuit. Look at the Super Bowl winning champion coach. He knew it. I love it. And that's what you got to do. But speaking about risk it for the biscuit, tell the people about what just happened this past week in the second round, Jurg. Now that we're deeper in it, let's not the second round of the draft. My apologies. The NHL draft, lottery, and everything that just happened in it. Tell them how Buffalo, even though they were the winner of the NHL draft, they are still somehow the losers.
How cruel is it to be a Buffalo Sabres fan? The fact that you get the number one overall pick in this draft. Now, granted, worst season of any team, right? Like, they had the worst record of anybody. 18-game losing streak. You have gotten your superstar forward so mad to the point where he's probably going to get traded within the next year or two. And you get the number one overall pick in a draft where there's not even a bona fide number one player like a McDavid or even back when you got Rasmus Dahlin. By the way, last time Buffalo had a number one overall pick. By the way, they've stagnated his – like, it is just an absolute, like – I don't understand the bad luck it is to be – well, I do understand the bad luck of why the Sabres have been so bad for 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's just say 15 years. It's probably not, but I'm just going to pretend it's 15 years. But no, in all seriousness, so the Buffalo Sabres, it's 50-50 with this pick, right? Because in this upcoming draft, there is truly no number one bona fide player. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't good players. I've begun the process while we're in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, I've begun the process of looking at the prospects. Now, my first deep dive came this past weekend into the NHL draft, James, and man, it's fun looking at these prospects. A lot of these kids I have heard of, and I've seen some of their development recently, and I've been awaiting to analyze them. We're definitely past the playoffs. We're definitely going to have a segment or something here on the show when it comes to me breaking down some of these kids and how they play and who you could expect. But at least for the Buffalo Sabres, they're going to get the pick of the number one pick. Owen Power out of Michigan, the defenseman, is likely the top guy that everyone is mocking right now. He's the popular pick. Big defenseman, 6'5", like I think 215 pounds right now. Kid can lay a couple hits. He's not fast for a tall defenseman. He's pretty agile. He could carry the puck in the zone. He could get back defensively. He's a very good player. Like in a draft where you don't have a bona fide number one pick, he's not a bad option to go with here. Or if you don't want to go with him for some reason and you want to actually go forward this year, Matthew Beniers is definitely a guy that they could consider with that first overall pick. A lot of people are saying he's probably the most complete player coming out this draft in terms of how he'll perform as a rookie. He's shown a lot of good stuff. Funny enough, also University of Michigan, so he was a teammate of Owen Power. The two of them performed really well in their first year of NCAA hockey. I say that because will they go for a second year or will they sign their entry-level deals? They probably will just go straight to the NHL. But it is something to look at in terms of will they go back? But I don't think the two of them will. I think there are other players that will definitely will be going to college next season after they're drafted. But the two of them are definitely nowhere near that. They're NHL ready.
How much is that entry-level contract, Jurg? How much do they make? Like, what are they debating between should I get this full ride or X amount of dollars? How does it usually go?
So for top picks, I don't think it's every single first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. But at least for like the top picks, the base salary, the base entry-level deal is a 3-year deal, average of $925K per season. But there are performance escalators in the deal with bonuses and stuff like that I think the max value for the top guys tends to be at around $2.5-3 million potentially. At least I think so, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, that depends on all kinds of things, and different rookies, different teams will have different escalators. Like Beniers, probably some of his stuff will be like, does he get 50 or 60 points in like his rookie season? Power will be like, does he get 10 goals? Like, I'm not saying those will be, but like various things like that, because the number one website I use when it comes to NHL contracts is capfriendly.com. And typically with rookie deals, like when you switch from just the cap hit to the salary, like the actual money guys are making, it's a difference, right? Because the cap hit is not how much a guy's making. In the NHL, a guy could have like a $6 million cap hit, but he's actually only being paid $2 million in salary because his deal was front loaded, right? Like that's how it works. It's just a lot easier for the NHL, what they decided, just equal cap hits for every single season. If you sign a 6-year, $60 million deal, it's $10 million a season. Doesn't matter if you're getting $15 million of actual salary. The cap hit is $10 million. So that's how they do it there. But yeah, about $925K with the potential to get even more. Again, with guys like Power and Beniers, college at this point, like it'd be nice, but it's I don't want to call it useless, but I don't see them going back. It's not a scenario where like a lot of these kids upcoming who have actually committed to colleges, like the thing is like those guys haven't played yet. Like these are junior kids coming out, they've committed to a university, and they're going to get drafted. So the teams will retain their draft rights while they're at university. So that's actually a very common thing that a lot of kids use in terms of wanting to go to college and not necessarily being ready for the NHL yet, and not wanting to go to the CHL actually, which is how majority of prospects usually come out. They go through one of the 3 junior hockey leagues in Canada in the overall CHL, and then they declare for the draft. And then when they're drafted from a CHL team, until they're officially put on the main roster of the NHL team or they're old enough to be in the minors, they actually go back to the juniors to play. I think the age cap I want to say is maybe 20, 21, like once you've been drafted. So it's something around that. But yeah, that's how it works. So the Buffalo Sabres, they're going to get the pick of the litter in terms of who they could pick. I think it's going to be one of those two. Whoever doesn't get picked number 1 is definitely going number 2 to the Seattle Kraken. The new kids on the block got the second overall pick. I think they only had the 4th or 5th best odds, if I'm not mistaken. So a little bit of jump up for them in that one. I think Vegas got the 6th overall pick when they came out. So for Seattle to get number 2 is pretty nice. And again, they're either going to get the top defenseman in this class, like on paper, or at least, again, a guy who I said is being pegged by many to be the most complete all-around player coming out of this draft. Like, that's not a bad consolation prize in any way. They're going to get the expansion draft. They're going to get the number 2 overall pick. It's looking bright for Seattle already. And the whole organization ain't even set yet.
And those jerseys are just fire, Jurg. Have you seen the jerseys?
Oh,
they're just
it's beautiful.
Fire. Honestly, I messed up. I should have waited a couple years so I could rock those jerseys. But it's all right. The Golden Knights jersey is just as fire. So
I would honestly argue, like, if I'm taking jerseys in every single league, the Golden Knights straight golden jerseys, like with the golden helmet and all that, like, how is that not? Come on now,
ridiculous, right? And I don't know what kind of Nikes they are, but I got this pair of Nikes in my head that just match with it perfectly, Jurg. Oh, be fire! I look so good. Either way, speaking of looking good, there's some people who aren't looking good, and we're about to talk about the Bunts And there's some people that are looking good, and there's some people who were kind of a surprise, but they aren't doing as good, but we expect them to do better. So that brings us to our segment. What is it, Jurg? Our player performances in MLB. Jurg, you go first, please.
So for those of you that joined us, and I hope you listened in last week, we went through one team, each of us, that has overperformed to this point of the season, that has disappointed us this season, and that we expect to make a surge in the not technically second half, because there's like about 100 games left, give or take, or like 130 for the Mets. I think.
Second third of the season.
Yeah, second third of the season, except if you're the Mets. I think they still need to play like 150 games, it feels like.
Yeah, something like that. We're like Calgary. We're missing everything.
or Vancouver, really. So we are going to start off just like we did last week with in this case, players that have, kind of broken out this season, really, that, we expected they were going to be fine. They were going to be solid, but they've actually even overperformed to what our expectations were, right? And so I'm going to begin this affair, and I'm going to go with a pitcher here in the NL, and he is a pitcher on the defending World Series champion. We saw him play phenomenal in their World Series run last year, and this is the first time in a while that he looks fully healthy in the regular season. He was pegged to be a future starter ever since he was, picked up by the squad. Injuries have gotten in his way, including eye issues in his career. Sadly, that's delayed it. But finally, James, I think this season we are seeing the coming out party of Julio Urias, who has been on just a great level to start the season for the Dodgers and leads the team as well, right? So I'm going to get straight to the stats when it comes to him. Now, record is not necessarily what I always point to first when it comes to a pitcher. I think it's a slightly misleading stat. So this is not the main stat I'm going to base off his performance this season in terms of how he's done, but 8-2 record. That's pretty good. Like, no matter what you say, having an 8-2 record at this point in your full, like, true proper season. He did play last year in 2020 and was healthy, but this is like for the first time in a 162 game regular season, we're going to see his full impact. And 8-2 so far is not bad. A 3.48 ERA is also not too bad in today's game, where ERA is such a different number now, where a 3 to 3.5 is actually considered a pretty dang good starting pitcher. Julio Urias is doing a phenomenal job right there, staying in that range. But it's the other numbers, James. Like, this kid, I expected this from him early. I just remember years ago when the Dodgers picked him up, I'm like, they got one of the guys that try to help replace Kershaw when he was finally going to take that dip. And this kid has done just that in the strikeouts this season. So 80 strikeouts on the season has him well within the top 20 of the league. His whip is a 0.97. 0.97. It's absolutely phenomenal how he's done so far. And it's just based off of the fact that if you're not getting a hit on this kid, or if you're not prolonging the at-bat, he's just striking you out. Like I said, already with the 80 strikeouts, he's averaging 7.3 strikeouts per walk he throws, which means the next time he's going to go throw 4 balls in an at-bat, he struck out 7 guys before that. It is absolutely phenomenal how he's doing this. We talk about in the game today, of course, in some cases, it's pitchers. It's a lot easier to collect the strikeouts because of so many guys just swing nowadays. But Julio Urias is not just one of those guys that's collecting strikeouts because of how the game is played. No, he's a legit strikeout artist this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Opposing players so far this season are only hitting a .222 against him. That's absolutely phenomenal. That's below league average. Even in today's game, where the league average is lower than it was in previous years, I'm pretty sure this is still below league average. So the fact that he's collecting this many strikeouts, guys aren't hitting off him a lot, is absolutely phenomenal. And last stat, like I said, with the Ks per walks, how about Ks per 9? 10 Ks per 9 innings. This kid has been absolutely phenomenal for the Dodgers this season. They had a little bit of a rocky, not start, like rocky, stretch recently going back into May, but they've looked a lot better since. And part of the reason why they are well within striking distance to easily take back the NL West in the snap of the fingers is because Julio Urias has just been next level this season. And finally, he has his coming out party. And I couldn't be happier for the kid who suffered like quite a few injuries before finally getting to this point.
I'm glad you mentioned those injuries, Jurg, because honestly, I followed the kid for a long time. And aside from last year where he did show a glimmer of this, I wasn't buying the hype anymore, man. But, if baseball's ever taught me anything, it's believe in the post-hype. When someone is a prime player and they just never reach the hype, a late career surge is never a shock in baseball. And Julio Urias is definitely one of those people. I Can't say I'm not shocked. Great choice, Jurg. Love it. And you're right. It's been nothing but the injuries. And now he's healthy. We're seeing really what this kid could do. And like you said, he was drafted with the intention of replacing one of the greatest pitchers of all time. So imagine having this guy and Walker Buehler also, who he's not surprised, but he's just a dominant ace that everyone knows about. It's arguably one of the best pitching staffs, if not the best pitching staff. Actually, you got Bauer there. As much as I hate to say it, they are the best pitching staff in the entire league. I think
it continues to show how well the Dodgers have drafted for like the last decade plus.
Yes.
Like they've drafted so well that they could give up these prospects and these deals for guys like Manny Machado and let Machado leave and then get him new bets, right? Like, and now it's Clayton Kershaw. And by the way, Urias was the guy we wanted, but hey, Walker Buehler is pretty good too, right? Like,
literally, no one was even expecting Buehler. He just came out randomly 3 years ago. It was like, oh, hey, look at this guy. But I'm glad you picked a pitcher, Jurg, because I as well picked a pitcher for my surprise player. My surprise player is a player in the NL East who is a dominant ace. You all right there, Jurg? We good? Yeah, but as I was saying, a dominant pitcher. He plays on the East Coast, as I said. It's going to be the one, the only. No, not Jacob deGrom, but the youngster, Trevor Rogers. And he has been an absolute stud this year. And I especially know that because he's another guy I got on my fantasy team. I'm just drafting. You hear these diamonds I draft all the time, Jurg? I'm just killing it. But
how are you not winning? Like you're winning, right? You got to be first or second.
I am in first. I made the move to first. I gave someone a whooping. I ain't going to say who, but I'm in first. But as you said, Jurg, I'm just going to read off the stats because this guy has almost Jacob deGrom numbers. The first time I've ever seen him play was actually against the Mets this season. And he was in a pitcher's duel with Jacob deGrom. And when he beat us, he actually had 10 strikeouts. Did he beat us? No. Yes, he did, because we had it on like our second episode, and it was deGrom watching. We lost, and it was tragic. But either way, that was when I went on my rant, actually, when we lost by the 1 run, because it was literally just the 1 run. Regardless, he has just been straight dominant. His ERA is a 1.97. You were talking about how Julio Urias' ERA is sick? Yes, Jurg. This guy has under a 2 ERA at the moment, and he has just been outrageous. His record isn't as good, but it's still 6-3. And honestly, the strikeouts are just as phenomenal. It's 81 strikeouts to the 68 innings pitched. So he is just straight. The craziest part is Miami secretly has been building up to this. They have prospects almost just like the Los Angeles Dodgers, because their whole starting rotation, it's not fully there yet. But coming into this season, everyone knew they had a bunch of young arms there that could become studs. Trevor Rogers was supposed to be that third guy coming out of that rotation, but he has dominated this season. He is now clearly their number 1 ace. This man has just, and this is after coming off of Tommy John surgery, I believe it was, 2 years ago. So he's just been straight dominant, and he has every reason to be the surprise player. I was going to go with Byron Buxton, but unfortunately he's been injured and has missed the last month or so of the season. So if he did it, it would be Byron Buxton, because he is another one of those late post-hype players that you mentioned, just like Julio Urias, Jurg. So Byron Buxton, honorable mention, but the dominant Trevor Rogers, who I am scared my Mets have to see so often, is my surprise player for this year.
I really like the fact that you mentioned the fact that coming in, he was supposed to be the third guy for the Marlins, because the Marlins have sneakily built up a very good young pitching rotation, and he's supposed to be the third guy. Like Alcantara, it was going to be like the 1 or 2 there. It was
between Alcantara and Sexto. It was really supposed to be Sexto. That was
Sixto Sanchez, right?
Sixto, thank you. I can't say his name.
all good, but no, like this is a big point there. Like, he's supposed to be the third guy, but now he's become the number 1. Now that means your number 1 and 2 are your second and third. So for the future, the Miami Marlins have built up a nice rotation for themselves. And when you're a rebuilding organization, and it feels like the Marlins have done that since the last time they've won a World Series, that's all you can ask for when it comes to that. It's get these young players, let them develop, help them develop, and then ultimately, when it's finally time to come to the main roster, like, okay, it's time to shine. You made it to the show, and now it's time to perform. Shout out to the best video games made in terms of sports. MLB The Show games are the best, bar none.
Whoa. I'm the baseball guy here, but even I got to say it's FIFA, man. Come on. It's FIFA.
FIFA's been declining for like 5 years.
I haven't played FIFA in like 6 years.
Oh, come on. Come on now. Okay, but no, in all seriousness, like the fact that the Marlins are finally at least showing signs that the rebuild is paying off is a good thing. And for it to be their pitching rotation, like you'd argue, James, the first thing you want to have in your rebuild is the pitching rotation down, right? Like you need to start pitchers.
For sure, because even with, especially today, we already see, we talk about it all the time, Jurg, how it's swing or miss now. Home run or miss or strikeout. That's it. Simple as that. So when it's almost like having a dominant pitcher is like having a quarterback, because look at the New York Yankees. Garrett Cole, look at New York in general. Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom are two must-win games every time they are on the mound. So it's like having Patrick Mahomes playing against Cincinnati. Like, that has to be a must-win. That's it. So that's why you rather build your lineup, because look at the Mets back in 2015. By no means was our offense at all great, but our lineup held us down, and then that hyped up the offense and gave them momentum, and that's what led us into our deep playoff run that unfortunately fizzled out towards the middle of the World Series. But hey, we got there. Last team in New York to ever be in the World Series. Don't you ever forget it. But regardless, yes, sure. So your rotation is what you want to build up first.
All right, that's good to know. And I like the fact that you mentioned the Mets, because the Mets have been good at a lot of things, aside from building pitching rotations, also disappointing people. So my disappointment for this season, you like that transition there, James, is Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor is my biggest player disappointment of the season so far. And look, I love Francisco Lindor. I was one of the many people that praised the trade by the Mets, because it was about time that they pulled off a move like that. But let's just be real. He has not performed to his level this season, and not just to his own all-star level, because I think there's two different ways to look at Francisco Lindor not performing at his best so far this season, right? It's what we saw back in Cleveland, him being the all-star, etc. That I think I can forgive, because he needs to get used to the environment. He needs to get used to his teammate. Like, I will always say this: chemistry matters a lot more than people think. Fit and feel matter a lot more than you think. I think Lindor has needed these first month and a half, 2 months or so, to kind of get used to everything, to kind of get used to the Mets' way of things. I really do believe that. And I think he will start doing better. But to this point of the season, we have to say he's been a disappointment. And in part because, and I'm personally not going to hold it against him, I might be mentioning it, but that's because I already expect everyone else is going to talk about this, the contract that he signed. When you sign a deal to be one of, if not the definitely not the highest paid player in the game, but one of the highest paid players in the game, you sign it to be what, like $1 million more than Fernando Tatis? Because you were really like going for that number.
He just wanted that one extra. That was it. He wanted to say you could pass.
Yeah, exactly. And so he just hasn't played to his level. 5 homers and 13 RBI is not great at all by any stretch of the imagination. A .218 batting average is just not good anyway. When you're this deep into the season, like, to see the numbers that low, it's definitely concerning. But this is more so there are 2 stats that I'm going to say that this is more so my reason why I have them, even forgetting all the other stats I've said. The fact that this season he has 42 hits, but he has 37 strikeouts. He's only had 1 season in his career where he had more than 100 strikeouts in it. He's never been, this level of bad. And he's on pace now to have over 100 strikeouts on this season. He is not one of these like 150 to 200 strikeout players, but he's going to jack up like 35, 40, 45 homers. No, he's a great batting average player who doesn't strike out a lot. Like I said, only 1 season with 100 strikeouts or less, or 100 strikeouts or more, excuse me. The rest are below 100. A batting average, contact, and power, speed, defense. Like, he's that guy, right? He's one of those players, James, that you love. So for him to not be performing at this level this season is definitely a disappointment. And it's all highlighted by the fact that he had that 0 for 26 hitless streak at some point. And I think that really killed him. I think that's weighing down his numbers a lot. I think if you take that out, his numbers would, at least his batting average and stuff like that, would look a lot better. So I do kind of feel for the guy. Again, I didn't want to put him on here, but in terms of the name, the contract, everything we're going to point out, the expectations the Mets came into the season with, I'm sorry, Francisco Lindor, but you're the big name on the team, so I got to go with you, because the Mets are not disappointing Jacob deGrom, because if deGrom had a below 500 record, I would put the Mets run support in Jacob deGrom starts, but he is actually like 5-2, so he is thankfully spared from being on this, but that doesn't mean that Mets were spared at all, so Lindor's my guy.
You got jokes today, huh? I missed one one episode. We push an episode a day so I could watch my Nets in the semifinals. And you got jokes today, huh? But you're right. I can't say you're wrong, Jurg. He has been highly disappointing. Actually, the whole trade has been highly disappointing, considering the fact that we haven't seen Carlos Carrasco either, due to the fact that he's been injured, and it seems like he might not come back until late July, early August. But regardless, back to Lindor. He is, besides last year in the shortened season, he has been a perennial MVP candidate, just to show how good this guy has been. So, yes, the bar, and because of how much he got paid, as you said, Jurg, the bar was set super, super high for the guy. But even if it wasn't set high, he is still failing by all expectations. But he's been picking it up the last week or two. I don't want to say nothing, knock on wood. Hopefully he plays, but I do 100%. What I love you brought up, Jurg, is the fact that you said it takes a minute for new players to get used to environments. It's actually, I've seen a stat. I forgot where I read it, but anytime there's a new free agent who goes to a new stadium, his stats are usually dramatically worse. And sometimes they never meet the same expectation that they were before, but they're always take a little bit of a dip. Sometimes they go back up, sometimes they don't. Fingers crossed they go back. But for example, you said a whole bunch of examples. You said Mookie Betts. Another example was Manny Machado. And unfortunately, new environments may not be or maybe what's killing my disappointment, but Manny Machado is my disappointment for this year. Manny Machado is disappointing for this year because, yes, we haven't seen the same Manny Machado since he left the Baltimore Orioles, but in last year's shortened season, we did see it because he actually was third in MVP voting. He was batting .300. He hit, I'm not exactly sure how you could, translate this, but he hit 16 home runs and 47 RBIs, and it was 60 games. So, he kept up that pace. He was going to hit above 30, 90 plus RBI, something like that. Easy.
He would have flirted with like a 3,100 season for sure.
Exactly. And that's Manny Machado of old. And he was actually stealing a couple bases too. We hadn't seen him done that since he was, a little skinnier and was still playing shortstop. But irregardless, Manny Machado this year has been a downright disappointment because, yes, he hadn't looked good in either LA or San Diego his first year, but after what we saw last year, you were expecting to try and see a little more of that Manny Machado of past. He still has a little bit of his power, but it's still been highly disappointing. He's batting a smooth 239. It's been slightly going up because about 2-3 weeks ago, that 239 was somewhere around 220-ish. So he's picking it up, but it hasn't been anything. He has been a little injured this season, but I don't believe it's been anything major for him to keep producing how he's producing. And like you brought up, Jurg, the strikeouts really is what's killing him more than anything because he is striking out at an outrageous rate. He got 43 strikeouts for the year so far, and that's in 6 less games than last year where he only had 37 strikeouts. So he's just – maybe it's the pine tar, I don't know. Maybe that's why Trevor Rogers and Julio Jones are now our surprise candidates. I'm not going to say it's because of that, but hopefully we get to see Manny Machado vote because not only am I a Manny Machado fan because I've always been a Manny Machado fan, I just love the way he plays the game, and he just kind of has the swagger. He was kind of the first one of these youngins to bring back the swagger. It was like him and Mookie Betts and Trout, but regardless, and Bryce Harper, but irregardless, it may not come back because he may be one of those players, like I said, where once they leave their original field and they're in their new territory, he's been in San Diego now his 3rd year, and we're seeing this kind of year. He may be one of those players where his career will never be the same.
And I think, James, the point that we bring up with both of these is the fact that ballpark matters, right? Like the metrics of the ballpark, the dimensions, going to this new environment, having to get used to everything. All that matters in baseball. And what I really like about us always talking baseball is we keep bringing up things to people that they may not understand on the base level or think it may not be important. But it matters when you're going from from one team to the next team. And I've even seen it at the collegiate level where it's like when I was doing some commentary this season, we had 2 or 3 teams that were known really good hitters in our conference come to face us. And one of them just hit like it was no tomorrow, but the other one struggled, right? Like, so it's a tale of 2 differences. And part of the reason is just the field we're playing on. Like, I really do think that matters a little bit more than people want to give credit for. Like, I know we love blaming the athlete and we always believe that everything is somehow in their hands. when it's not. But this is just one of those things that, again, I really like the fact that we're bringing this up because we're showing people like the little things matter in baseball more and more. But speaking of the little things, the two guys we're about to talk about, they need to do the little things really fast to improve this season, to get back to their form that we have seen from previous years. So my player that I believe is going to go on a run for the last 2/3 of the season and improve is the former, literally last season's NL MVP winner, Freddie Freeman. Freeman is actually doing pretty good this season. If you just look at the home run stat, 13 homers for him is a pretty good number to this point. And I actually, when I looked at him, I'm like, dang, I can't really, how am I going to say he needs to improve? But then I looked at the rest of his stats, right? So I'm not going to compare it to 2020 because it was such a truncated sample size. I'm going to go back to 2019 where we had that last full season. And even from 2019, his batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, and wins above replacement all are below and are slated to be below if we just assume, like, go statistically, how is he going to finish out the year? I don't believe that's going to be the case. I don't think he's going to stay at these current stats forever. He's hitting below 230. His on-base percentage is below 360. That's not going to stay. Freddie Freeman is too talented of a player. Like the last few guys we talked about, James, I've brought up numbers. I'm not even going to bring up numbers with Freddie Freeman. I'm just going off of eye test and pure talent. This guy is one of the best players in the game. He's one of the best hitters in the game. And straight up, he's just going to have a better half of the season. Because in part, I think Atlanta needs him to, because Atlanta's been struggling. And I think if they're going to make that surge as a team, shout out, they could have been a team that we talked about last week. Freddie Freeman needs to be the guy leading the charge. So I have Freddie Freeman as my player who I just expect to do better. Like a former MVP, he's going to get his groove.
I mean, as a Met fan, I hope he doesn't. But as a Freddie Freeman fan, you're right. I think he will, and I hope he does because he's, like you say, he's a perennial MVP candidate, and he is the former MVP. He's just someone who time and time does it again. He's just one of those people you could trust. And honestly, this is another guy who I thought you could trust, and he does all the little things, but he doesn't. And that's going to be Mr. DJ LeMahieu. But I believe he still has a chance to bring it back because the reason I say that is he's currently batting a 253, none in his perennial 11-year career, his great 11-year career where he's been a silver slugger many times. He's only batted 250 once, and that was in his sophomore season. So, his rookie season, even better. He's been somebody, and he's the reason why the Yankees signed this guy is so he can be a contact hitter. He's supposed to be the guy who beats the shift and puts the ball wherever he wants it and works that short deck. And he just hasn't been that guy. And some people are actually saying it's because he got paid. I don't believe that's it. I just think it takes – some people have down seasons, but I feel like he's going to get everything to click right because he's shown us, even in Coors Field and out of Coors Field, that he is a contact. He's just a baseball player. That's it. This guy's a baseball, just straight. He plays baseball. I don't know how else to say it. There's just people who that's all their life's about. And he's one of those people. So there's no way he doesn't put it all together. And that's why I have him as my comeback candidate.
I definitely like that. And again, I like the fact that both of us, we're just going based off of talent for our selections right there. Like, no stats. We don't need fancy numbers like, you and Prez said last week, James. We get these statistics out of sports. So all we want is the base stuff. We want to see the talent. And that's what we're going with our guys, Freddie Freeman and DJ LeMahieu. Like, you don't need to go deep dive into the numbers. Both these guys are going to bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the eye test. It's just this simple. It's straight talent. DJ LeMahieu, he didn't win the MVP, but he's been an MVP candidate, top 3 for the last 2 years. So it's not like he just forgot how to hit a ball.
Exactly. And speaking of straight talent, I mentioned him just now. So last week, we debuted the newest segment in Bunts and Bruises podcast history, our Getting to Know You segment, where whenever we have it in a week, we're going to bring someone from the Off the Ball Network on, and they're going to give us 5 questions about themselves, multiple choice. So, we have an answer sheet. And myself and James are going to be pitted one-on-one against one another to try to decide which one of us knows our guys better. Spoiler alert, it's just not going to be me, but I'm going to give a good old college try, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, our prez, Chris LeBron, joined us for the first time on show history last week for the first ever segment of it. And now this week, we just keep the talent and the greatness going. And we have a guy that I know is bringing the fire this week. He is one of the vice presidents of the Off the Ball Network. He hosts the Up in Flames podcast, one of the best, whether it's basketball, football, whatever topic they're talking about on the show, one of the best dudes out there in the sports media world. If you are not somehow following him, you got to get on the wave, because this is straight up one of the best dudes in the game today. And like I said, one of our VPs and one of the biggest fans of our show, VP Mo Murphy.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? I appreciate that. That introduction was something nice. I feel important.
He just gets you blushing. He does it to me too every week. I know it's coming, and I'm just like, yo, Jurg,
you didn't even have to do all that, bro. I know when I get him on Up in Flames, I give him the utmost, the NHL guru and everything, but you didn't have to return the favor. I feel honored.
Hey, only the best for the best people I know and work with. And you are definitely, everyone at Off the Ball Network is, but you are definitely one of those people, Mo. You've been in my corner essentially like since the very first time I joined, like just waiting for all the work I've been doing. You definitely, I've always appreciated your praise. Again, everyone in general, but you especially. And I'm very happy that we got you on the show for the first time. So James, again, just like last week, this is your brainchild. I'm going to let you, kind of take the reins, introduce Mo and what we're doing here. Now let's get going. Let's see if you could go 2-0.
All right, so I'm not going to introduce Vice Prez because I can't top your introduction, Jurg. I'm going to embarrass myself right now. But as Jurg said, guys, it's getting to know you here with Vice President Mo Murph. And Jurg's about to go up in flames. Simple as that. I'm about to go 2-0. The game here is, Vice Prez, you got your 5 questions. We upgraded from 4 last week because as you guys listened and saw last week, we realized we needed a tiebreaker. So 5 questions.
We're trash.
5 questions, 3 options, and away we go. Mr. Vice Prez, take it away.
All right, so the first question, what city in Florida was I born in? A, Clearwater, B, Jacksonville, C, Miami.
Cool. Let me hear the options again, Vice Prez.
Clearwater, Jacksonville, or Miami?
Oof. I'm gonna go with that one. All right, go.
Next question.
I'm supposed to. Oh, I just go to the.
No. We go over it at the end.
Yeah.
Just next question.
Okay.
We write it down.
I had to do the basic. What's my favorite color? A, blue, B, red, or C, green?
I like it.
Yeah, that's always a get to know you question. Like when you get to know somebody, what's your favorite color? Like,
I'm trying to think. Hang on. All right, what was it? A, red.
Hey, don't go on his Twitter profile looking to see what's there. Don't you dare.
I don't have a piece of paper and pen here. I'm using my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Blue. A is blue. B is red. C is green.
All right, I'm going that one. All right.
Get a little. What school tried recruiting me first? A, College of Charleston. B, the Naval Academy. Or C, East Tennessee State University.
What was the first one again?
College of Charleston.
Right. I don't think it's.
I'm not gonna lie, James. I needed that one reset too because I was like, wait, what was it?
I'm gonna go with that one.
All right. 4. What car do I drive? A, Nissan Altima. B, a Toyota Corolla. C, a Kia Optima.
Let me look in your eyes real quick, Vice Prez.
Honestly, you could show me a picture of the car. I wouldn't be able to tell you what model it is.
He's about to say what kind of person does he look like. You could disrespect me by picking a certain option. So.
I was gonna say I thought it was gonna be like a Dodge Charger or something. Isn't that what they give you military guys when you?
Nah, I didn't jump on that wave, bro. The Charger.
Oh, that's Army. You're right. That's Army. Sorry.
I didn't jump on that wave. And the fifth one, this will probably be tough. First ever pro sports I attended. A, MLB, B, NHL, or C, NFL?
We'll go with this one. I like that one. I feel confident in that last one.
I'm definitely not getting that one right.
So those are my 5 questions.
All right, Vice Prez. Now let's go over them one by one. Just say the answers again for the people, and then we'll give you our answers right after.
All right. So number one, what city in Florida was I born in? The answer is A, Clearwater.
Well,
I put B.
You put Jacksonville?
I also had Jacksonville. I knew it wasn't Miami. I knew it was not Miami.
1. Yeah, I don't have enough Miami pride for it to be Miami. I'm not a big Dolphins fan, Marlins fan. I don't have enough pride. So number 2.
Jurg got it wrong too. I'm fine. We're still good. We're all for 1.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Mo, my bad. Just so you know, so you what it is that when you say the answer choices, we actually like give our answer.
Yeah, give the options so the people remember.
Oh, okay. I apologize. My fault. All right,
we were both wrong. It's all good.
Yeah,
Question 2. What's my favorite color? A, blue. B, red. Or C, green.
I went C, green, because for money.
I also went green because, and this is just my random memory coming to effect, I feel like one time Mo said his favorite color was green. So I think it's I don't know why.
Green is such a god ugly color.
Oh,
no, bro.
Yeah.
Not my favorite color.
Dang it. You gotta like my reasoning for it though.
I like it, but my favorite color is red.
I wanted to go red too. I thought it was too obvious.
You know what's crazy? I thought like Jurg, somebody would have put a little more, like Ohio State. I love the scarlet and gray. Miami Heat, black and red. Like maybe thought about favorite teams and be like,
I thought blue because of Tampa Lightning. That's what I thought.
I could even understand that. All right, so question number 3: what school tried recruiting me first? A, College of Charleston. B, the Naval Academy. Or C, East Tennessee State University.
Jurg, you go first.
Yeah, this is where I lose. Give me A.
I was gonna go there.
Hey, come on.
I have C written down. I'm going
Coward.
C.
Lies.
Jurg was right. It was A.
Damn, I knew it was Charleston. You said that too. He said that before.
It was going into my freshman year that summer. I had a summer league game, and I had a really good game or whatever. Had no idea anybody was paying attention. It was actually a College of Charleston scout that was like, that was the first time I ever got recruited. No official offer at that time, but it was like first time like, hey, are you interested? First time I ever spoke to a college recruiter was the College of Charleston going into my freshman year. That's crazy.
Cool, man. I never got recruited, so I can't imagine someone coming up to you and just like, hey, how you doing? You want to play
especially
for us?
It was like I hadn't even, like I was going into the high school, so it was like one of those like, only big dogs. But then you realize, like, you hear about the phenoms that are going to Florida State since 6th grade. So you hear about that. So it was a small school, but it's still like, man, I never thought in my life I'd ever get recruited, let alone somebody want to talk to me before my freshman year. So, yeah, that was pretty crazy. So question number 4, what car do I drive? A, a Nissan Altima. B, a Toyota Corolla. Or C, a Kia Optima.
James?
I'm going A.
You don't remember the car models, do you? And that's why you just said A.
Nah, I looked in his eyes. I saw a Nissan Altima deep in his eyes. That's what it was.
Nice. I don't remember the options, so I'm just going to throw a dart at the board behind me right now, and I'm just going to say B. That's where the dart landed, so I have to go with B.
Well, Bars wins because it is A. I drive a blue Nissan Altima.
I knew it was blue, too. I could have told you that. I could tell you your license plate number 2. No.
But Bars is right. I drive a blue Nissan Altima. So this is the good one because I feel like of the options, people hear the options, but I feel like I threw you off with only 3 options, leaving off probably what you would think an NBA game. So I probably threw everybody off here. And then, so we'll see where this goes. First ever pro sports game I ever attended. A, MLB, B, NHL, or C, NFL.
This is the game winner, Jurg. You want it or you want me to go first?
Oh, my God. I got burned last week going first. You're going to win anyways, so I'll let you go first.
I'm going to go A, MLB game. Everyone's face first, Your parents take you. It's a cheap ticket,
Dang. Oh, my God. I'm going to get this wrong again. Let me just rip off the Band-Aid. I'm going NFL. I know I'm wrong, but I'm just going with the NFL.
Both of y'all are wrong. Actually, the first game
you have to be kidding me.
The answer is B, NHL. The first ever pro sports I ever attended was actually a Tampa Bay Lightning game.
Oh.
Jurg, you know what's crazy? I kind of set this question up for you. Like, I'm like, Jurg gonna get this right. I throw NHL out there.
I thought
Jurg
you were
knows
gonna
it.
go NHL, Jurg.
But I'm like, Jurg.
I got
he's a
burned
hockey
last
guy.
week.
But and then he knows, like, I talk about, like, man, I've been to Lightning games before, and so I didn't have NBA because I'm sure everybody would assume, like, oh, you definitely been to an NBA game. Actually, bro, the first time I ever went to an NBA game was last year.
Wow.
Yeah, last season, Portland versus the Lakers in Portland. First time I ever. I've said that before, bro. Like, I've been to plenty of Lightning games. I've been to Rays games. I've been to Bucks games. So I've been to all three. But the first one I ever went to was an NHL game. I've been to a couple, and actually it was nice. I got to sit in the suite. My dad was but he was working for Pepsi. They had the Pepsi suite over there in Amalie Arena. So I got this suite, free food, all that. That was the first time I ever went to a pro game.
I would have never went back. That set the bar too high.
It was the experience. Like, it was probably, as far as going to any professional game, that was, we used to go to Rays games for summer camp, but I had went to a hockey game prior to that. But we used to go to Rays games, summer camp, and then if you had like a certain cable company, you get tickets for like $15. We go to Rays games. Nobody goes to Rays games, so we go to Rays games all the time. Only time people go to Rays games is if the Yankees are in town or the Red Sox. It's the only time it's a sellout crowd and it's a bunch of Red Sox fans or it's a bunch of Yankees fans. Other than that, bro, you could probably sneak into the game and nobody would be upset.
All right, Vice Pres, we got a certain responsibility.
I'm just imagining, and hold on real quick, James. I'm just imagining people going into the Rays Stadium and they don't even got a ticket, and the guy's just like, we need people anyway, just go ahead and get in. They're like, I'm just imagining.
I heard they got like a food deal or something. Like, you pay $30 and it's like all you eat fries and soda or something.
Bro, they do like yeah, bro, or they'll have like $15 for a ticket and you get like 2 hot dogs and a drink for free or something. Like, it's a voucher. Yeah, bro. They used to, I think a little more people go now, but they used to beg people to go to Rays games. I swear to God. Like, they begged you. Like, they just threw it in your face. Like, please come. And we used to go in the summertime, like for summer camp. So we go to like those 1:00 in the afternoon games that hardly anybody can make. And we'd be there in the whole summer camp, but it was one of those, like, I've been to plenty of Rays games, been to a few hockey games. And yeah, I didn't go to my first NBA game. I've been to a WNBA game before I went to an NBA game.
Wow.
Actually, I went to visit my grandma in Seattle and went to a Seattle Storm game. And that was well before they played Phoenix. So that was well before I ever went to a NBA game. Like I said, my first NBA game was last year.
Vice Pres, time out. Before you keep saying random facts right now, we need you to make a 6th question. See, that WNBA one would have been perfect. So that's why I'm telling you, time out.
Oh, shit. Right. I got to make a 6th question.
Just a random one real quick. If you
There's a tiebreaker? Is this the tiebreaker?
This has to be I don't take ties. This ain't the NFL.
So you guys are tied right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes. 1-1.
Oh my God, a 6th question. I hate to get to know you stuff because I'd be like, I don't know. Dang. Yeah, that WNBA game would have been perfect.
What was the second WNBA game you ever went to?
That was actually the only one. That's the only one I've ever been to. Dang. Okay, what was the name of the high school I attended?
Give us 2 options.
No. Time out. Because I'm going to throw you guys off. What was the name of the high school I graduated from? Okay. It's St. Pete High School, Largo High School, or Clearwater High School? Boom.
He said like 2 of those names before for sure. All right, Jared, go.
Ain't no chance it's Clearwater. That feels too obvious. But I always get caught on the obvious ones. This is so not fair. Oh, whatever. B.
I'll go A.
It's C.
So A was St. Pete, B was Clearwater, C was Largo, right? Did I name that right?
No, Clearwater was C. Clearwater was C.
Okay,
I didn't pick Clearwater.
Jurg is right. Wait, who went B?
Yes!
Wait. Hold on, who went B?
I picked St. Peter's.
Yeah, he picked Largo. Yeah, he's right. Jurg is right. Jurg wins. Yeah,
visual gags on an audio platform. It works so well.
It's one-on-one, whatever.
It's crazy. So Chris points out Jurg is 0 for 2 on NHL questions, and like it's us lobbing Jurg NHL questions. Like, hey, I feel if I put NHL, Jurg will say I'm gonna take my NHL guru stuff hat on I would say he went to a hockey game. He's giving me an answer. That's why I put that. I'm like, Jurg will get this right.
To be fair to me, really fast, let me be fair. Both of them I thought a little bit too hard on. This is my biggest flaw in life. This is probably a big reason why I am the way I am. I think too hard and too long on things sometimes because
you thought it was too obvious. Like, he put hockey. That can't be the answer.
No, because I know you said you went to Tampa Bay games, but at least me, this is where my selective memory fails me. I don't remember if I ever saw or I don't remember seeing or remembering that you said that the first ever pro sport game you went to was an NHL game.
Yeah, so, I've said it before in the chat.
Okay, that's on my memory.
Because people don't believe it. Like, people don't believe that, like, the first game I've ever went to is hockey. Because it's like, he loves football, he loves basketball. And then being in the Tampa Bay area, like, he probably went to a Bucks game or he probably went to, we don't have a basketball team. So closest was Orlando Magic. And the first NBA game I was supposed to go to was when the Heat Big Three got together, the preseason game against the Orlando Magic in the Lightning Arena, but the ice kind of, they didn't get the court together in time, so the ice had, it was, what do I say? The gym was sweating, basically. The floor was slippery. The floor was too slippery. Like, it was too much condensation.
They didn't clear it in time because, like, people don't realize it takes a lot to maintain a hockey rink. And, like, for these teams where it's a hockey rink and a basketball court in the arena, like, it takes a lot of management. That's why it's so critical, the NBA and the NHL, those two leagues are working together with their schedule, because if they're going to work out a thing where, like, by chance, if teams are going to play in the same day, they need to be like, okay, you're going to get like the morning game and we need enough time to like finesse this to get it ready, like stuff like that.
Yeah, that was like, it was one of those, like, I was the Heat Big Three. They're in Tampa. Like, Miami is coming to Tampa right across the bridge. Like, oh my God, I get to go. And then like the game got canceled and it was like, oh my God. Like, it was the first game ever the Big Three were supposed to play. It was against the Orlando Magic. Glad they didn't play in Orlando. I wish they would have played in Orlando, but I probably wouldn't have went. So it was like, man, I get to come to Tampa. My dad, like, we're going to go see him in Tampa. Like, we have to. They're this close. Like, we may never get the opportunity. And then, the game was canceled. So, but yeah, Jurg, if I ever ask another hockey question, it's yours. Like, just know, like, if I throw hockey in there, like, it's for you. Like, it is for you. But like Bars said, it makes it, everybody's been to, like, you would think everybody's been to a baseball game. It's cheap. Yeah. They have family days.
It felt like a lob to me. How come no one's lobbing me these questions? How come I'm not getting a baseball?
Because the reason why is because Jurg is so confident that he loses. So I'm like, okay, if I could give him a question, Bar sweeps the floor. So if I can at least make him not go 0-5. He was confident he was going 0-5 tonight. So I'm like, if he can't go 0-5, we good. Like, okay, 4-1. He got a question right. Got the hockey question right. It makes sense. But Jurg just thought too hard. Thought it was too obvious. Just like the Clearwater one. Jurg knew.
He still won it, though. He still won it.
That one I was right, though. That one I'm like, all right, Clearwater.
No, I was with you on that. I was like,
yeah, because it was. Because I was going to say what was the first high school I attended, and I was like, Clearwater. I'm like, nah, that's too obvious if I say Clearwater, whatever. So I was like, let me make it a little spicy. Where did I graduate from? Because I went to 2 different high schools. So I was like, let me make it spicy. Throw obvious to make y'all think. But both of y'all like, nah, we're not going to go the obvious one. So at least neither one of y'all picked the obvious one.
It would have been funny for sure. It definitely would have been funny for sure. So, of course, that wraps up this week's Getting to Know You segment. And the lovable loser, the underdog, a.k.a. myself, comes out on top this time. James, unlike you, I will actually be humble in my victory and say I didn't expect to win. I probably shouldn't have, but I'll take it nonetheless. So before we officially finish up today, Mo, me and James, we started off today's show talking about Julio Jones being traded to the Tennessee Titans. Because yes, every once in a while, there is sports news big enough for even the baseball and hockey guys to talk about. So I want you, Mo, give your thoughts on it. Floor is yours. Everything you think about the Julio Jones to Tennessee move.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I just released the article today, so that's like perfect to talk about. Basically, like the article says is, I just kind of broke it down is Tennessee contenders with Julio Jones. And the one thing everybody has in the back of their minds is that Julio is injury prone and he doesn't play. He's not guaranteed to play a lot of games. I actually said that, and I debunked myself and debunked it in the article, the narrative that he doesn't play a lot of games. Because there's only been 2 games he's played less. There's only been 2 seasons in his 10-year career that he's played less than 13 games. That was in 2013, and that was last year. Only 2 times he's played less than 13 games. yes, he's played through injury, so he has had some injuries that he's played through. The only problem, I love the trade. I think it makes the Titans contenders. We know what they need to upgrade on, so do they in his defense. But that offense is going to be unstoppable. Like, as a defensive coordinator, that's about to give you, like, I get Tannehill isn't Mahomes or Rodgers. Defensive coordinators typically have to prepare for quarterbacks. But to have to prepare for arguably the best running back in the NFL last year, probably the past 2 years. So coming into this year, he might be considered the hardest running back to stop and the best wide receiver of this generation and the up and coming top 5 wide receiver in the next 2 years, projected in A.J. Brown. That's got to make defensive coordinators go crazy. And for that, I think, yes, Tannehill is no Mahomes, but he's a top 12 to 15 quarterback to me easily. Maybe even top 10. Everybody game manager, but my quarterback could give me 3,600 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. I would take that as a game managing quarterback. You add another weapon. So I think there were other teams that should have, for the price, the Packers should have been all in on Julio. To be honest, if there's a disgruntled quarterback, I think Seattle should have been all in. We know Russell Wilson complained about the offensive line, so that doesn't help there. But God, DK, Tyler Lockett, and Julio, man, you'd put DK in the slot, Tyler Lockett in the slot. It'd be no way to stop that. I think the Packers should have really pursued Julio Jones. God forbid, I'm glad the Chiefs didn't try and jump in there just to give Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback. I'm glad the Bucs didn't jump in there. I don't think the Falcons will let that happen. But I do think that the Titans won, and I think they're contenders. I think that puts them 4th in the AFC, probably where you would have had them, but a strong 4 behind Cleveland. Cleveland, probably Baltimore and Kansas, or Cleveland, Buffalo, and Kansas City. And I think that puts them at a strong 4. I think they're pretty even with Cleveland because I like Ryan Tannehill over Baker, and I look at the weapons. I know they have Odell and Jarvis Landry, but unlike Julio, there is a narrative with Odell, and it's true that he is very injury riddled. We don't know if we'll see the best of Odell anymore. So I think the Titans are the 3rd, tied for 3rd, or maybe a little bit under Cleveland because of that defense as the 4th best team. And I mean, with as strong as those 3 teams are, I could see any one of them winning the AFC. So why could I not see Tennessee? So I think it makes them Super Bowl contenders. I'm not guaranteeing they go to the Super Bowl, but I mean, a talent like Julio, even if you can have him for this year or the next 2 years, man, Tennessee, I'm talking about physical monsters. A.J. Brown is a physical monster. Derrick Henry, the only thing that would have made this even better had they kept Jonnu Smith. You got like 3 of the biggest dudes we've ever seen at their positions, and they would have just physically imposed their will and dominated teams. So I think it was a great move for Tennessee. It shows that they're confident in what they have, and they're trying to take the next step. And I think Julio can take them to the next step. Wide receivers, like Jeff says, wide receivers don't win championships. But when you're that close and you add a weapon like Julio, where you need a little couple nicks here and there, and Julio was a guy you add, I think the Titans have a chance, and they compete with Kansas City, Buffalo. Like, they're right under or just as good as any of those teams. So I do love the trade, and I think Julio's going to make some noise. And the whole, like I said, the narrative of him being injury prone, like I kind of debunked that, even though I rode that wave too, was like, man, he really doesn't miss games. He's played like 136 out of like 152 games in his career. So the whole injury thing with Julio Jones is kind of a false narrative just because of recency bias, and he was hurt last year. And he plays some games a little nicked up. He gets questionable and comes in and plays. But yeah, I think it's great for Tennessee. That's great for Tennessee to possibly have a great team this year. Not a team that typically is great. So when you add another AFC team, man, that makes the AFC deep, really deep. So AFC is going to be very competitive, very exciting. So I'm glad. And I'm glad Julio left. He wanted to leave. I'm glad he left.
For sure. And I think to your point, Mo, while wide receiver, like essentially all but 1 or 2 positions in the NFL, when you acquire someone, everyone's just like, okay, but there's only the 1 or 2 positions where it's like, okay, now this makes a significant difference. I think you bring up the very good point that, yourself, Jeff, have mentioned. It's like for a team like Tennessee in their specific situation, getting that bona fide number 1 dude. And A.J. Brown, I think he's on his way to becoming a number 1. But why not add a Julio Jones to just make A.J. Brown's life easier? And now teams have gotten, like I said this with James, teams now, you're going to expect a couple more passes here and there, because when you have a Julio Jones, you don't just keep the same formula, right? Like, of course, you're still going to run with Derrick Henry a lot, But now you can afford, hey, let's just take a deep shot because it's Julio Jones that may catch the ball. Like, he is one of those human beings. I mean, you mentioned him, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry. There are 3 human beings on one team where I look at them and I'm like, ain't no way I'm the same species as them. Like, you cannot explain that to me scientifically, that I'm the same species as these 3, like, just athletic specimens. So I definitely think I was on the wave at the very beginning of the show where I do think he's going to make a difference. Even with that defense, I think the strategy is, and James attested to it, that in today's league, if your defense is hurting, that what you try to do is get an offense that could just go run and gun. And if you're going to go up in that AFC, like you mentioned, Mo, when you have the Kansas City Chiefs, enough said about what that offense is. It's Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. With Buffalo, with Josh Allen throwing it to Stephon Diggs. With Cleveland, and even though he hasn't been healthy, if he could just find some semblance of himself, Odell is at least a name, but you also have Jarvis Landry, the 2-headed beast, that running back there. You need to match up with those teams offensively, and I think Tennessee understood that. And this trade, honestly, it's funny because you kind of mentioned Buffalo, but then you mentioned Baltimore, then you went to Buffalo. Like, I think this does put them above Baltimore because now look what they did for Tannehill. They got him a bona fide number 1 guy, and that's something that we've been asking the Ravens to do for Lamar for like two seasons now. And all it took was a 2nd and a 4th, and it really makes you wonder, like, why Baltimore doesn't make that move, and even Green Bay as well. But we already know they don't want to keep their quarterback happy, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, 100%.
James, anything to add to it?
Nah, I agree, 100% agree with both you guys. I've already said everything I can, and you guys just repeated everything as well. Tennessee is just keep an eye out for them this year. And I, like Mo said, the AFC is just the amount of talent in that conference compared to the NFC is just outrageous. The AFC is just, I don't see a way AFC doesn't win the Super Bowl, except besides the defending champ Buccaneers. But irregardless, Vice Prez, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of getting to know you, the second one. We will take a break from it next week because, you know, all good things, you need a less sizzle. But tell the people, please, where they can see you at.
Yeah, I mean, definitely go to offtheballnetwork.com. Check out everybody's content. Obviously, they come at you. It's different. It's Tuesday, but they come at you Monday live, 8 o'clock. I check it out pretty much every week. But as far as me, Up in Flames Pod on Twitter and Instagram, Mo_Cheese15 on Twitter and Instagram. You can listen to Up in Flames wherever. Put it out on YouTube. We do live shows. And check us out on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel every Wednesday through Saturday at the conclusion of the final 2K League game. We go live on Dash Radio and cover, you know, that night's slate of games and just go over it. Definitely a lot of fun. Me, Chris, Edgar, Chris Bolton, and Jelani. You know, we have a lot of fun with that. It's different on the radio than it is a podcast. People don't, you know, some people don't realize that, but it is. When you're going live on the radio, it's a lot different. Got to bring a little bit more fire than I'm used to, a little more personality. But it's definitely been fun. So definitely go check out all that. And like I said, just go to offtheballnetwork.com and check out everybody's articles, daily bets that, you know, between Pat and Kenneth, you know, the daily bets, the Euro is coming up. Shout out to Kenneth. He's going to cover that. He's already got your early bets in for that. And he's bringing articles on the daily. So make sure you check out that. That's obviously a huge deal. European Soccer Championship. I'm not big on NHL, but Kenneth made me pick a team, so I'm going with Italy. Italy's going to win the Euro. He made me pick a team. He hit me up, said, bro, you got to have a team. So I'm like, you know what? My aunt lives in Italy. I'm going with Italy. So hopefully Italy wins, makes me look good. Now I have a new bandwagon team to jump on. But, you know, I appreciate y'all for having me on.
Oh, of course. It was more than a pleasure to have you on. And with getting to know you, we're going to have James came up with it, so I'm sure it's his plan. But eventually, everyone Off the Ball Network is going to be on this at some point in some way, shape, or form, and we're going to get the questions. And we're going to see just how badly me and James continue to be on these questions. Because what was it? Like, I went 1 for 4 last week, 2 for 6 this week. James with the 1 for, like, James, we got
2 for 3.
We gotta get a little bit better on these, especially we start out slow, man.
We gotta pay attention to the group chat a little more.
I got to remember things way more, which, you know, that's a problem for another time. But like we already said, Mo, thank you so much for joining us. And, hey, you already said you got an article posted up. Make sure you check out what he had to say about the Julio Jones deal and that full breakdown. And all the amazing articles that all of us do can be found at offtheballnetwork.com. And you always get the links out on Facebook and Twitter as well. For us, it's Bunts and Bruises at Twitter. or at Bunts and Bruises on Twitter, I should say. At Jurg K40 for me on Instagram and Twitter. At Bars Talks for him. Is it Bars? I forget. Is it Bars _ Talks on IG, or where's the underscore at in that one?
It's on IG. Yes, it's Bars _ Talks on IG. I haven't posted a thing yet. I'm waiting for the right moment. It's going to be the greatest picture ever. But I do post stories, and I post all the news and all our links where you can follow us. Please like, subscribe, review, retweet, tell your friends, tell your friends' friends, tell your friends' moms, tell their dog, tell their college roommate. I don't care. Spread the word, guys, because B&B is about to take over the world. But other than that, we appreciate you guys. We love all of you. Peace.